She opposed the wedding, but the alien princess froze when she saw the human. Yet even in this time of peace, suspicion between species remained. Many leaders still wondered whether trust could truly exist between different worlds. Among these leaders was the royal house of Viridia, a powerful alien empire known for its advanced technology, rich culture, and strict traditions. Princess Alira of Viridia had grown up in the palace surrounded by luxury, expectation, and rules. She was brilliant, strong-willed, and fiercely independent, but she had little patience for politics that ignored honesty. Her people expected her to follow tradition, to marry a suitable partner chosen for the benefit of the empire. That expectation weighed on her like a shadow, but she had learned to stand tall against it, even when it made her unpopular. The Council of Elders in Viridia had recently called a meeting of the entire royal family. The reason was unusual: a symbolic marriage alliance with Earth, one of the youngest planets in the galaxy, to establish interstellar communication. Leaders from both sides believed this alliance could strengthen peace, build trust, and show that even the smallest civilizations could have a voice in galactic decisions. Alira listened quietly as the head elder announced the plan. "Princess Alira," he said with solemn authority, "you have been chosen to represent Viridia in a marriage that will unite our people with the humans of Earth. It is a duty of honor, and we believe you will carry it with the dignity of our ancestors." Alira's heart sank. She had expected proposals from other noble houses, but never from Earth. She had heard of humans before. They were small, fragile, and far behind in technology compared to Viridia. Many in her court whispered that humans were unpredictable, impulsive, and perhaps even dangerous in ways that the council could not see. To Alira, the idea of marrying a human felt absurd. She clenched her fists under the folds of her ceremonial robe and spoke quietly to herself. "I will not do this. I cannot marry someone I do not trust, someone I do not understand, not for politics, not for duty." Her voice was firm, though only she could hear it. Alira had always been someone who acted according to her heart, even when tradition demanded otherwise. She believed that strength was not only measured in technology or power, but also in honesty, courage, and wisdom. While the council debated the finer points of the alliance, Earth had also been preparing. Humans were not used to interstellar politics, but they had sent their best representative, a young man named Ethan. He was neither a soldier nor a politician in the usual sense. He was calm, thoughtful, and curious about the galaxy. He carried no arrogance, only a quiet determination to show that humanity could be trusted. Ethan had grown up hearing stories of other planets, imagining stars and civilizations far beyond Earth's borders. He had seen both the greatness and flaws of humans, their creativity, their empathy, their ability to learn from mistakes. He believed that humans could be better than their reputation suggested. And now he faced a task that tested all of that belief: to represent humanity in a marriage that could change the course of interstellar diplomacy. On the day of the announcement, the palace of Viridia shone like a jewel under the twin suns. Crystal towers reflected the golden light, gardens glimmered with flowers that shimmered in colors unseen on Earth, and the air carried a faint hum of energy from the protective fields surrounding the city. Citizens from all over the empire had gathered to witness the historic event. Holographic screens broadcasted the announcement across planets, and even distant worlds paused to watch. Alira stepped onto the grand balcony overlooking the crowd. Her robe shimmered in the sunlight, embroidered with symbols of her family and her empire. She took a deep breath, ready to deliver her declaration. Her voice, though calm, carried the weight of conviction. "I, Princess Alira of Viridia, wish to speak honestly," she said. "I do not oppose peace, and I do not oppose alliances, but I cannot support this marriage, not without understanding the humans. I cannot agree to bind my life to someone I do not know, someone whose ways are unfamiliar and whose culture I have yet to learn." A murmur ran through the crowd. The council members shifted uneasily. Some whispered that Alira's refusal could embarrass the empire. Others admired her courage. For Alira, it did not matter. She believed that honesty was more important than approval, that truth must guide decisions, not fear of judgment. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Ethan had been briefed on the same meeting. He knew that the princess might oppose the marriage. He expected resistance, pride, and doubt. But he also believed that sincerity could overcome suspicion. He had not come to impress, to argue, or to demand. He had come to show the heart of humanity, curiosity, patience, and respect. The moment finally arrived. The palace doors opened with a soft hiss, and Ethan entered. He did not stride arrogantly, he walked with calm purpose. His uniform was simple, representing Earth without any unnecessary ornamentation. He bowed slightly as he stepped forward, acknowledging the council, the princess, and the people. "Princess Alira," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I am honored to meet you. I come not to claim or command, but to understand. I hope to learn about your people, your world, and your values. I hope to show that humans seek friendship and respect, not conquest." Alira blinked. She had prepared for arrogance, for empty flattery, for grand gestures designed to impress her. But this human, he did not act like that. There was no arrogance, no pretension. There was only calm, direct sincerity. The crowd was silent. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Alira felt a strange curiosity stirring inside her, a feeling she rarely allowed. She studied him carefully. His eyes were calm, yet there was a quiet strength in them. He did not try to seem superior. He did not demand attention. He simply stood there, a human, and yet somehow more present than any alien courtier she had ever met. She wanted to speak, to reject him as she had planned, but the words felt different now. They sounded harsh, rigid, and out of place. She realized that Ethan was not like other representatives. He did not fit the expectations she had built in her mind. "Why did you agree to this meeting?" Alira asked, her voice steady but softer than before. "Why would you come to a marriage that is mostly symbolic when your people are so far behind in the galaxy?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because humans are not defined by technology or power alone. We are defined by how we treat each other, how we learn, and how we hope for a better future. I believe that two different worlds can teach each other something valuable. I believe that understanding comes before judgment." Alira felt a shiver of surprise. His words were simple, yet they carried a depth she had not expected. He spoke not of ambition or duty, but of ideals. And in those ideals, she saw a reflection of her own beliefs, honesty, courage, and respect. The crowd waited, tense and uncertain. Everyone expected confrontation, a dramatic refusal, or at least a show of defiance. But Alira stood quietly, looking at the human who had entered her world without fear, without pride, without pretense. The palace walls seemed to fade around her. The noise of the crowd, the buzzing of the technology, the weight of expectations, all of it disappeared for a moment. She saw only the human standing before her, sincere and calm, a small figure in a grand hall, yet somehow commanding her attention more than any noble or general ever had. Alira's mind raced. She had always believed humans were weak, that they relied on numbers, weapons, and luck. She had expected them to be clumsy, impatient, and loud. Yet here was a human who defied all those assumptions, who carried himself with dignity and quiet strength. She realized that her opposition was no longer simple. It was not about duty or politics. It was about curiosity, understanding, and perhaps something she could not yet name. For the first time in her life, she felt uncertain in a way that was exciting rather than frightening. The council elders exchanged nervous glances. Some whispered, worried that Alira might be swayed too easily. Others looked intrigued, sensing that this meeting might not go as anyone had expected. Ethan continued to speak, his words calm and thoughtful. He spoke of Earth's history, of humans' mistakes and successes, of the ways they learned from hardship. He did not boast. He did not claim superiority. He simply shared truth. Alira listened. She felt the walls of her assumptions begin to crumble. She felt a spark of respect for this human who carried honesty like a shield, who spoke of hope and understanding without demanding acknowledgement. By the end of the meeting, no decisions had been made. Alira had not rejected the marriage, but she had not accepted it either. Instead, she had paused, caught off guard by something she had never expected, a human whose presence made her reconsider everything she thought she knew. As the crowd dispersed, she lingered on the balcony, staring at the stars beyond. She realized that the galaxy was full of surprises, and that perhaps humans were not the fragile creatures she had imagined. Perhaps they were capable of something greater, something that could not be measured by size or technology, but by heart and spirit. And in that moment, Princess Alira felt a stirring of curiosity, a sense that her life and the lives of her people might be changed by the very human she had once thought to oppose. The announcement was over. The galaxy waited. And somewhere in the vast palace, A princess who had opposed the wedding began to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, she had underestimated the human before her. The grand hall of the Viridian Palace was vast and gleaming. Crystals embedded in the floor reflected the twin suns, light, casting dancing patterns on the high, vaulted ceilings. Courtiers and ambassadors filled the room, their uniforms and robes a kaleidoscope of colors from countless star systems. Holographic displays floated above the crowd, showing images of Earth, its oceans, mountains, and cities, as a reminder of the civilization that now sought an alliance. Princess Alira walked through the hall with the grace and confidence of someone born to command attention. Her steps were steady, her posture perfect, and her mind sharpened like a sword. She knew the eyes of the galaxy were upon her, but she did not flinch. She was prepared to speak her truth. She was prepared to refuse the marriage. Her advisors had warned her that this refusal could have political consequences. Some even suggested that she soften her tone, speak in careful, diplomatic words, and avoid offending either side. But Alira refused. She had always believed that honesty was more powerful than politics. If humans were truly worthy, they would understand her reasoning. If not, then she would remain true to herself. As she stepped onto the platform, all conversation fell silent. The crowd waited for her statement. The council elders exchanged glances, sensing the weight of this moment. Some were nervous, some were curious, all were eager to see how the princess would respond. Alira lifted her chin, letting her voice carry across the hall. "I have thought long and carefully about this proposal," she began, her tone clear and firm. "I respect the idea of peace, and I honor the intention of alliances, but I cannot agree to this marriage without understanding the humans more deeply. My people deserve honesty, not mere symbolism. My life is not a tool for diplomacy. I cannot consent to a union that I do not believe in." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some were shocked by her courage, others uneasy at her refusal. The council members whispered among themselves, debating how to handle this unexpected turn. They had anticipated a polite acceptance, perhaps with minor negotiation, not an outright challenge from the princess. Then the doors at the far end of the hall opened with a soft hiss. A figure entered, calm and deliberate. He was human. He was not clad in heavy armor or adorned with jewels. His uniform was simple, practical, yet neatly tailored. Every movement he made conveyed respect, confidence, and an absence of fear. Ethan stepped forward. His calm gaze swept the hall, noting the crowd's size and the grandeur of the palace without a trace of intimidation. He approached the platform, bowing slightly to acknowledge Princess Alira, the council, and the spectators. "Princess Alira," he said, his voice steady and calm, carrying across the vast hall. "I understand that you have concerns. I do not come to force a decision, nor to demand agreement. I come to meet you as a representative of humanity, with honesty, respect, and hope." Alira stared. She had expected a human who would be bold, arrogant, or defensive. Perhaps someone who would argue with her or try to impress her. But this man, he was quiet, almost serene. There was no pretense, no show of superiority, just presence, just sincerity. For a moment, the room seemed to still. Even the air felt heavier, as if the hall itself paused to witness this unexpected encounter. Alira felt her carefully constructed words falter. She had rehearsed her refusal over and over, but now, standing before Ethan, her certainty wavered. The human continued, calmly and politely. "I know my people are young in the galaxy, and we have much to learn. We are not perfect, and we have made mistakes. But we believe in growth, in understanding, and in kindness. I hope that in meeting us you will see not weakness but potential. I hope that you will see a partner, not a stranger." The audience watched in silence. Many were surprised by the tone of his words. No one had expected humility mixed with conviction, clarity mixed with respect. There was something in his demeanor that demanded attention, not because of power, but because of truth. Alira's mind raced. She had always judged humans as fragile and unreliable, but now she found herself questioning that judgment. She studied Ethan's expression, calm, honest, unwavering, yet gentle. He did not seek approval, but he did seek understanding. "You speak of growth and potential," Alira said, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "Yet your people have not survived the vast challenges of the galaxy for long. You lack experience, technology, and knowledge. How can I trust that you are more than your words?" Ethan smiled faintly, not mockingly, but with a quiet warmth. "Trust is not built from age or size alone," he replied. It is built from actions, understanding, and respect. My people may be young, but we learn quickly. We value honesty, courage, and loyalty. If given the chance, we can grow together, not because we are stronger, but because we are willing to try. Alira felt a strange sensation she had never felt before. Curiosity, respect, something akin to admiration. For the first time, she considered that perhaps humans were not as weak as she had assumed. Perhaps their strength lay elsewhere, not in technology or size, but in spirit, heart, and determination. The council murmured among themselves, sensing the change in the room. Some were relieved that the human did not argue, others were concerned that Princess Alira might be swayed too quickly. But Alira herself remained still, weighing the words she had just heard. "I have been taught to judge by what I see," she said, "not by what I am told. I have been taught that humans are fragile, that they rely on luck more than skill. Yet here you stand, calm, respectful, and confident. Perhaps I have been mistaken." Ethan inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words without arrogance. "We are all capable of mistakes," he said, "but we are also capable of learning from them. If you allow me, I would like to show you more about humanity, not just in words, but through action. Only then can you judge fairly." The princess felt an unusual sensation, hesitation. Her initial plan to refuse outright now seemed incomplete. She had expected confrontation, argument, and perhaps even anger. Instead, she felt intrigue. Something in Ethan's presence made her want to learn more, not just reject him. The council exchanged nervous glances. They had anticipated resistance from Princess Alira, but now they faced uncertainty. The crowd, too, was caught between expectation and curiosity. No one had anticipated this quiet tension, this gentle challenge to preconceived notions. Alira stepped down from the platform, pacing slowly as she considered her options. The hall was immense, yet the human seemed almost unnervingly present, a small figure with a strong, undeniable aura. "Tell me," she said finally, her tone cautious but genuine, "what do you truly seek in this alliance? Is it only political gain, or is there something more?" Ethan looked directly at her, eyes steady and sincere. "I seek understanding," he said simply. "I seek friendship between our peoples. I hope to learn from your culture and traditions, and I hope your people might learn from ours. We wish for peace, yes, but also for connection, something beyond politics or agreements." Alira blinked. For the first time, she felt a sense of wonder. This human, so small by her world's standards, spoke with clarity and conviction. He did not act as though he were beneath her nor above her. He acted as though he truly wished to understand and to be understood. A part of her wanted to retreat, to return to certainty and tradition. Another part, a part she had rarely acknowledged, wanted to explore this possibility. She had opposed the marriage because she believed humans were weak, but now she realized that strength could take many forms. Perhaps the human before her embodied a kind of strength she had never encountered before. The day ended without a resolution. Princess Alira did not reject the marriage, but she did not accept it either. She had paused, caught off guard by a human whose honesty, calmness, and quiet strength had shaken her assumptions. As the crowd dispersed, Alira walked alone along the palace balcony, gazing at the stars beyond. She considered the human's words, his presence, and the unusual sense of curiosity he had stirred in her. For the first time, she felt that perhaps humans were not the fragile creatures she had imagined. Perhaps their true strength lay in their heart, in their ability to hope, to learn, and to grow. Ethan, too, walked quietly through the corridors of the palace, reflecting on the meeting. He had not expected an immediate agreement, nor had he sought one. He had only sought to show the truth of his people, that humans, though young in the galaxy, were capable of sincerity, courage, and respect. The stage was set. The princess had opposed the marriage, yet something inside her had changed. The human had entered her world without arrogance, without fear, and with a presence that commanded attention not by power, but by honesty. Neither of them knew what the next days would bring. But in that moment, the first threads of understanding and curiosity had begun to weave between them. And so the story of Princess Alira and Ethan continued, not as an immediate alliance, but as a slow, careful journey of discovery, patience, and the subtle strength that lay hidden in both hearts. The palace gardens of Viridia were unlike any place on Earth. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly under the twin moons, and crystalline fountains reflected gentle streams of colored light across the smooth marble pathways. Princess Alira walked among the gardens, her thoughts heavy and her heart uneasy. She had opposed the marriage, had declared her refusal with confidence, yet the memory of Ethan's calm presence lingered in her mind. She had always believed that humans were fragile, unpredictable, and easily swayed. She had believed that no human could meet the standards of a Viridian royal. And yet, in the grand hall, Ethan had stood quietly, confident, sincere, and different. Something about him had unsettled her in a way she could not explain. The council had given her a choice, to meet him again in private under observation or to maintain her refusal publicly. For reasons she could not fully understand, she chose to meet him. She told herself it was merely to observe, to confirm her doubts. But a part of her, a small, quiet part, was curious. She wanted to see if the human was as he had appeared, calm, honest, and steady. Ethan was already waiting in the garden when she arrived. He stood near a fountain, looking out at the glowing flowers with a quiet appreciation. When he saw her approach, he turned and bowed slightly, as if greeting an old friend rather than a princess meeting for the first time. "Princess Alira," he said softly, "thank you for meeting me again." Alira paused. She had prepared words of caution, of doubt, perhaps even of gentle reprimand. But when she saw him standing there, smiling gently, calm, and entirely at ease, her words faltered. She felt a sudden, unfamiliar sensation, like a pause in time, as if the entire garden had slowed to a gentle hum. Her lips opened, but no sound came. She tried to speak, tried to remind herself of the reasons she opposed this marriage. But all of them seemed distant, faint, as if they belonged to someone else. Her gaze remained fixed on him. Ethan, noticing her hesitation, did not move closer or speak too quickly. He simply waited, giving her the space to find her words. There was patience in his posture, a quiet strength that made her pulse quicken. Alira's mind raced. Why am I frozen? Why can't I speak? She thought she was strong, independent, and certain. She had opposed many decisions before, had stood up to council elders and generals alike. And yet now, facing this human, she felt, small not in body but in certainty. "Why?" she began finally, her voice trembling slightly. "Why are you like this?" Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying her without judgment. "Like what?" he asked softly. "Calm," she admitted, her words barely above a whisper. "Confident, honest, unafraid, yet not proud. I do not understand. Humans are usually loud, impatient, and yet you are nothing like I expected." Ethan smiled gently. "I cannot speak for all humans, Princess. But I can speak for myself. I have learned that confidence without arrogance, strength without cruelty, and courage without force are what matter most. I do not wish to impress with power. I wish only to be honest and to understand others in the same way." Alira blinked. She had never heard such words spoken with such calm conviction. Her mind tried to formulate an argument, a reason to maintain her opposition, but each word seemed weak compared to the simple truth in his voice. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling that made her both curious and cautious. "Do you really believe that?" she asked, taking a hesitant step closer. "That humans can be trusted, that we could be allies, perhaps even friends?" Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. "I do. Trust is not given lightly, it is earned, but understanding is the first step, and I hope that by meeting you and learning from you we can take that first step together." Alira felt her legs weaken slightly. She had never encountered anyone in her life who spoke with such sincerity and such calm. Even among her own people, the strongest warriors and wisest scholars had always seemed distant, proud, or reserved. But Ethan, he seemed different. He was not superior, not inferior. He simply was. For a moment neither spoke. The glow from the gardens reflected in her eyes, the fountains sang softly, and the twin moons hung like silent guardians over the palace. Alira felt as if the universe itself had paused, waiting for her next move. Then she realized something startling. She had frozen, not out of fear, but out of wonder. She had come to oppose this human, to prove that humans were incapable of meeting the standards of her people. And yet now, she found herself unsure. She felt curiosity, admiration, and a strange pull she could not name. "Why do you do this?" she asked finally, her voice low and sincere. "Why come to me like this when I oppose this? Why not leave or try to impress me in ways I expect?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes calm yet full of depth. "Because truth matters more than appearances," he replied. "I cannot be someone I am not. I cannot pretend to be powerful or cunning or anything other than myself. And I believe that honesty is the only way to build real understanding. If I act differently, I would betray both my people and myself. Alira took a step closer, her arms unconsciously tightening at her sides. She had always valued honesty, always prized truth above all else. And here, standing before her, was a human who embodied that value so completely that it challenged everything she thought she knew. You, you are unlike anyone I have ever met, she whispered, her voice almost trembling. I thought I knew humans. I thought I knew what they were capable of, and yet you are different. Ethan smiled softly. I hope different is not a bad thing, he said gently. I hope it is a chance to see something new, to learn and to grow. Alira felt her heart beat faster. She had faced danger, challenges, and enemies countless times in her life. She had never felt this kind of tension, one that was not fear, not anger, but awe. Something in him made her pause, reconsider, and even question her own assumptions. Perhaps I judged too quickly, she admitted, her voice low. I opposed this marriage because I believed humans were weak, untrustworthy, incapable of understanding. But now, standing here, I see perhaps I was wrong. Ethan's expression remained calm, gentle. It is natural to doubt, he said, but doubt is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is what makes trust possible. The princess looked at him, studying every detail. The way he stood without arrogance, the calm strength in his eyes, the patience in his posture. For a moment, she felt something she had never experienced before, respect, genuine and unforced. She had opposed him with certainty, yet now that certainty seemed fragile, like glass in the sunlight. Alira realized she had frozen entirely, her planned opposition slipping from her mind. She had come prepared with arguments, reasoning, and a firm resolve. And yet none of it mattered now. She felt curiosity, admiration, and perhaps a hint of hope. You, she began, then stopped, unsure of how to continue. You are difficult to ignore. Ethan laughed softly, a sound that was gentle and unassuming, yet carried warmth. That is not my intention, he said. I only seek understanding, not to confuse or overwhelm you, but sometimes honesty has that effect. Alira felt a small smile tug at her lips. She had always prided herself on her clarity, her ability to face challenges without hesitation. And yet here she was, frozen, captivated, and deeply aware of a human's presence in a way that had never happened before. I do not know what will happen next, she admitted quietly. I cannot promise agreement or even friendship, but I want to understand. I want to learn why you speak as you do, why your people think as they do, and perhaps that is the first step. Ethan inclined his head respectfully. That is all I ask, he said. A willingness to see, to learn, and to try. Everything else can follow. The twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting soft silver light over the garden. Bioluminescent plants glowed brighter as if responding to the unusual quiet between the two. Princess Alira stood frozen, not from fear, but from the weight of realization. She had opposed this marriage with certainty, yet now, faced with truth, patience, and honesty embodied in a human, she could not move. And in that moment she understood something she had never expected. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. Their strength lay in their hearts, their courage, and their willingness to face uncertainty with honesty and hope. For the first time, Princess Alira saw not just a human before her, but a reflection of what could be. The possibility of a connection beyond politics, beyond duty, beyond expectation. And she knew deep within that her life, her perspective, and perhaps even the fate of her people might be changed by this meeting. Days passed after the first garden meeting, and Princess Alira could not forget Ethan. The calmness in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes, and the quiet strength he carried had left a mark on her that she had never experienced before. She found herself thinking about him at unexpected moments, while walking through the palace corridors, examining her people's records, or standing on the balcony overlooking the sparkling city below. At first, she told herself it was curiosity. She had opposed the marriage, yet something about Ethan intrigued her. Something about his presence challenged her assumptions about humans. She had believed humans were fragile and unpredictable. Yet here was one who was steady, thoughtful, and courageous in ways she had not anticipated. Alira decided she would observe him more closely, not in a formal political sense, but in a personal one. She requested another private meeting, under the supervision of a small council of advisors, in one of the palace's quiet gardens. She did not know exactly why she wanted this, only that she felt compelled to understand him, and perhaps, by extension, understand humanity itself. Ethan was waiting when she arrived. He stood beneath a glowing tree whose branches shimmered in soft blues and greens, its leaves pulsing gently with light. The air was filled with the faint hum of the palace's energy fields, and the scent of alien flowers drifted lightly in the warm breeze. "Princess Alira," he greeted her, bowing slightly as always. "Thank you for meeting me again." Alira gave a curt nod. She had thought she would be firm, cold even, but she found herself smiling faintly instead. "I came to see if you truly live as you speak," she said. "Words are easy, actions are harder." Ethan smiled. "I hope you will see both in time," he said gently. "Would you like a walk?" The garden is said to hold surprises for those willing to look closely. Alira hesitated. She had always preferred observation from a distance, maintaining control over her surroundings, but something in Ethan's demeanor made her trust him. She nodded, and together they began walking along the winding paths, the soft light of bioluminescent flowers illuminating their steps. As they walked, Ethan spoke of Earth. He spoke of vast oceans, towering mountains, forests where trees touched the sky, and deserts where silence stretched for days. He spoke of the laughter of children, the care of families, and the quiet courage of those who faced hardship and continued forward. He did not speak as if boasting, but as if sharing the essence of his people. Alira listened, fascinated. She had read about Earth in reports and seen images, but there was something alive in his words. His descriptions were not merely of places, but of experiences, emotions, and the values his people held dear. She felt as if she were seeing the planet through his eyes, and it was unlike anything she had imagined. "Humans are fragile," she said finally, "yet you speak of courage, hope, and endurance. How can one so small face challenges so great?" Ethan looked at her with calm understanding. "Strength is not only measured by size or power," he replied. "It is measured by the ability to continue, to care, and to act with purpose even when circumstances are difficult. Humans may be small compared to some civilizations, but we have hearts that endure, minds that think, and spirits that hope. That is what allows us to face challenges." Alira paused, letting his words settle. She had always valued strength, but she had equated it with power, technology, and skill. She had never considered that strength could be quiet, subtle, and invisible to the eye. She began to understand, in a small but growing way, that humans might possess a strength her people had overlooked. As they walked further, Ethan shared stories of Earth's history. He spoke of times when humans had been divided, when they had faced disasters, and when they had made mistakes. Yet he did not dwell on failure. Instead, he focused on how humans had learned from their mistakes, how they had built bridges, solved problems, and cared for one another in ways that often went unseen. Alira listened, captivated. She realized that the human before her was not merely representing his people. He embodied the values he spoke of. His calm, respectful presence was proof of the ideals he described. She had once opposed this marriage because she thought humans could not meet her standards. Now she saw that perhaps they could, just not in the ways she had expected. At a small fountain where water shimmered like liquid light, Ethan paused and gestured for Alira to sit on a nearby bench. The princess hesitated but then lowered herself gracefully, still careful to maintain her composure. "Princess," Ethan began softly, "I understand that you may not trust humans easily. That is fair. Trust is earned, not given. But I hope you will see that the heart of humanity is not fragile. It is capable of patience, understanding, and hope. These qualities do not always appear on the battlefield or in technology, but they are powerful in ways that can change lives." Alira felt herself nodding slowly. She had never considered trust in this way. In her world, trust was often built on proof, strength, or loyalty to tradition. But Ethan spoke of trust as something deeper, something that grew from understanding and honesty. She realized that she had been wrong to judge humanity solely by outward appearances. "You speak as if humanity is flawless," she said, her tone cautious but curious. "But I know you are not perfect. You have faults, yes." Ethan smiled gently. "Of course," he admitted. "Humans have faults. We make mistakes, we fail, we stumble. But what matters is that we learn, we grow, and we continue to try. Our imperfections are not weakness. They are opportunities to improve, to understand, and to connect with others." Alira felt a wave of respect and admiration rise within her. She had spent her life learning to excel, to follow rules, and to uphold the honor of her people. Yet here was a human, imperfect by any measure, who stood tall not through perfection, but through honesty, perseverance, and the desire to connect. She realized that this kind of strength was different from her own, but no less valuable. For hours, they walked through the glowing gardens, talking about their worlds, their values, and their hopes. Alira spoke of Viridia, of its traditions, of the importance of honor and loyalty. She described her people's achievements and the challenges they had faced. Ethan listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions, never judging, never interrupting. In turn, Ethan spoke of Earth, its diversity, its challenges, and its triumphs. He described moments of kindness, courage, and hope that often went unnoticed, but that shaped the hearts of his people. He spoke of humans' desire to learn, to grow, and to understand, not just their own kind, but others as well. Alira began to see the beauty in humanity. She began to understand that strength came in many forms, and that the human before her exemplified qualities her people often overlooked. She felt her resistance softening, replaced by curiosity, respect, and something warmer that she had not anticipated. At the edge of the gardens, where the lights of the palace glimmered like stars on the horizon, Alira paused. She looked at Ethan, and for the first time she allowed herself to consider the possibility that humans were not weak. They were capable of something extraordinary: empathy, courage, and hope. You are not what I expected," she said softly. "I opposed this marriage because I believed humans were weak, but now I see you and perhaps your people are strong in ways I had not imagined." Ethan inclined his head, his expression gentle and calm. "I am glad you see that," he said. "Strength is not always obvious. It is often quiet, patient, and steady, and sometimes it takes time to recognize." Alira felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had opposed the marriage with certainty, yet here she was, sitting with a human, listening to him speak, and learning truths she had never considered. She realized that perhaps this alliance, once a symbol of duty and politics, could become something more meaningful. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting silver light over the gardens, Alira and Ethan continued to walk and talk. The night was filled with quiet laughter, shared stories, and the gentle hum of understanding growing between them. She felt her heart opening, her curiosity deepening, and a sense of hope rising within her. For the first time, Princess Alira considered that this human and humanity might not be something to oppose. They might be something to understand, respect, and even admire. And so, the princess who once opposed the wedding began a journey not just toward understanding a human, but toward understanding a new kind of strength, one that could change her perspective, her life, and perhaps even the fate of her people. The palace of Viridia gleamed under the soft light of twin moons. Crystal towers reflected the glow, and the gardens shimmered with bioluminescent plants that pulsed gently in rhythm with the palace's energy fields. For days, Princess Alira had walked through these gardens with Ethan, speaking, observing, and learning. She had seen a new side of humanity, a quiet strength, a patience, and a sincerity that could not be measured by technology, power, or size. The council had gathered again, expecting her final decision. Ambassadors from distant planets had arrived, their faces reflecting curiosity, concern, and anticipation. News of the potential union had traveled across star systems, and all eyes were now on Princess Alira. Alira walked into the grand hall, her steps calm yet purposeful. The council elders looked at her with expectation, their expressions a mixture of anxiety and hope. She paused at the center of the room, taking a deep breath, her mind reflecting on the days that had passed. She remembered her first meeting with Ethan, the calmness in his voice, the honesty in his eyes, and the strange, compelling presence that had made her freeze in the garden. She remembered walking through the glowing paths of the palace, learning about Earth, hearing stories of courage, kindness, and hope that she had never imagined in a human. And she remembered the quiet, unwavering patience that had allowed her to see him as he truly was. For the first time, Alira realized that her opposition had not been born of malice or arrogance, but of assumption. She had assumed humans were weak, fragile, and incapable of understanding her people. She had opposed the marriage because she believed she was protecting her people, her life, and her values. Yet now, she saw that her assumptions were incomplete. Humans were different, yes, but different did not mean weak. Their strength lay in courage, empathy, hope, and perseverance, qualities that could not be measured in size, speed, or technology. Alira's heart beat steadily as she looked at the council. "I have thought carefully about this alliance," she began, her voice calm but clear. I once believed that humans were fragile and unreliable. I opposed this union because I thought it was not in the best interest of my people. I believed that our worlds were too different, that trust could not be built so easily. She paused, letting her words sink in. The hall was silent, every eye on her. Even the distant ambassadors leaned forward, sensing the importance of her next words. Yet I have met one human, she continued, her gaze steady. One human whose honesty, patience, and courage have challenged my assumptions. He has shown me that humanity possesses qualities my people may not fully understand. Empathy, perseverance, and hope that persists even in difficult times. Through him, I have learned that strength is not only measured in power or skill, but also in heart, spirit, and the willingness to act with truth and honor. The council murmured softly. Some looked surprised, others impressed. Alira's voice grew stronger, more confident as she spoke from the heart. This human, she said, has taught me that alliances are more than politics. They are opportunities to understand, to learn, and to grow together. I see now that humans, though different, are capable of strength, courage, and wisdom. They are worthy of respect, and perhaps even friendship. For these reasons, I no longer oppose this union, not out of duty, but out of genuine belief in the potential it holds. The hall erupted in gentle applause. The council elders exchanged smiles, relieved and impressed by her wisdom. The ambassadors looked at one another in quiet awe, realizing that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter for interstellar relations. Ethan, standing quietly among the representatives from Earth, bowed slightly in respect. He had not expected immediate acceptance, nor had he sought it. He only hoped to show the truth of his people and to offer a chance for understanding. And now Princess Alira had spoken, not out of duty, not out of fear, but out of recognition, respect, and hope. Alira stepped down from the dais, her eyes searching for Ethan among the assembly. When she saw him, she felt a quiet smile tug at her lips. She walked toward him, each step deliberate, each step carrying the weight of a new understanding. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice carrying just enough for him to hear over the crowd. "You have shown me a new perspective. You have shown me that humans are not what I expected, that they are strong in ways my people may not fully see. I am ready to take the next step." Ethan's expression remained calm, yet a warmth shone in his eyes. "That is all I have ever hoped for," he said gently. "Understanding, willingness, and a chance to learn together." The palace gardens outside shimmered under the twin moons, reflecting the new sense of hope that had grown between the two worlds. For Princess Alira, this was not merely a political decision. It was a choice born of insight, respect, and genuine admiration. She had opposed the wedding once, believing it was impossible for a human to meet her standards. Now she saw that humanity's greatest strength lay not in weapons or technology, but in heart, spirit, and the courage to act with honesty. As the ceremony began, representatives from both Viridia and Earth gathered to witness the moment. It was not merely a marriage, but a symbol of unity, understanding, and the potential for a future built on respect rather than fear. Alira and Ethan stood together before the council, their hands lightly touching, a simple gesture of connection, not of obligation. They looked at each other, recognizing the journey they had shared: curiosity, hesitation, learning, and growth. "Let this union," Alira said, her voice carrying across the hall, "be a symbol of what can be achieved when different worlds choose to understand rather than judge. Let it remind us that strength comes not only from power, but from heart, honesty, and hope. And let it inspire our peoples to see one another not as strangers, but as partners in a vast and beautiful galaxy." The council nodded in approval. The audience erupted in applause, but the moment remained personal, quiet, and meaningful between the princess and the human who had shown her the truth of his people. For Ethan, this moment was proof of the potential he had believed in. Humans were young in the galaxy, and their technology and knowledge were limited compared to civilizations like Viridia. But the qualities that truly mattered, honesty, patience, courage, and hope, were limitless. And here, standing beside Princess Alira, he saw that humanity could be respected not through conquest or force, but through heart. Alira looked out across the assembly and felt a profound sense of clarity. She had opposed this marriage because she thought she knew what humans were. She had frozen when she first saw Ethan because he challenged everything she thought she understood. And now she embraced the connection, recognizing that the true value of this union was not in politics, but in understanding, respect, and shared potential. The ceremony concluded with a simple exchange of words and gestures, symbolic but heartfelt. It was not flashy, nor was it grandiose in the way Viridian tradition could demand. Instead, it was quiet, sincere, and meaningful, a reflection of the qualities that had brought them together: honesty, patience, understanding, and hope. As the guests departed, Alira and Ethan walked through the palace gardens together, no longer as representatives of their people, but as individuals who had learned from each other, who had seen the potential for connection and growth across worlds. "You have changed my perspective," Alira said softly. "I opposed this marriage because I believed I was protecting my people, yet now I see that understanding and respect are stronger than fear and assumptions." Ethan smiled, his calm presence reassuring. "That is what I hope to show," he replied. "Humans are not perfect, but we try, and sometimes the greatest victories are not in power, but in connection." Alira nodded. She felt a sense of peace, clarity, and hope she had never known before. For the first time, she looked at the future not with fear or doubt, but with possibility and excitement. And so, the princess who once opposed the wedding stood beside a human who had shown her the strength of his people. Together, they had created a new beginning, not only for themselves, but for the galaxy. The twin moons of Viridia shone brightly above, reflecting in the palace fountains, casting soft light over gardens that seemed to pulse with life. In that light, Alira understood the truth she had discovered over days of walking, talking, and learning. Strength was not only measured by power or skill. Strength was measured by heart, spirit, honesty, and the courage to hope. The galaxy watched, not just at a marriage, but at a promise. A promise that different worlds could learn from one another, that understanding could overcome fear, and that even the smallest actions, kindness, patience, honesty, could inspire greatness. Princess Alira and Ethan continued to walk through the gardens, their steps quiet but steady. They knew challenges would come, for no world was perfect, and no path was without obstacles. But they also knew that they had discovered something far greater than politics or duty. They had discovered the potential for a true connection, built on respect, honesty, and the courage to see the best in one another. And so, the story of the alien princess and the human did not end with a decision, but began anew, with hope, understanding, and the quiet strength that could shape the future of the galaxy.